there's this moment that hits after the spiritual high fades, when the signs slow down, the euphoria softens, and your connection doesn't feel as loud anymore. You start questioning yourself. Did I lose it? Was it all in my head? What if I never feel like that again? But what I've come to realize is that moment, that quiet in between, that's not the end of your awakening. In fact, that's where the real practice begins. Welcome back to the High Dev Perspective Podcast, the space where we keep it honest, grounded, and elevated all at once. My name is Debonair, and this is episode 17. Welcome. I hope you are doing well. If you're someone who likes to sit with deeper versions of the story, I also share this in written form through my newsletter, The Conscious Dev, and I'll leave that link down below in the show notes. So I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, and I'm going to assume, because the reason why I don't do it is I potentially could be making an ass out of you and me. But I am going to assume that if you have gotten this far along my podcast, then you've had a spiritual awakening, some sort of time in your life, right? So you've experienced the heightened sensitivity and the desire for authenticity and the deep inner reflection and the signs and synchronicities all day, every day. And you feel that disconnection from your old self, right? Okay, cool, bet. So 2023 was a really pivotal breakthrough year for me. That was when I had my first awakening that I was fully aware of, because I was in a state where I was already working on myself, and I just experienced this this shift in the way that I saw the world, the way that I thought, and in fact, things within my actual external reality just was, it was one of those things where it's like, I can't grasp what the hell is happening, but is this really happening to me type shit? But it was happening, because I was in fact having an awakening. A series of experiences happened in the year 2023 for me. I'm laughing because I'm just like, wow, you can't make any of this shit up. So March is when I had my first awakening that I was fully aware of. I again remember the heightened sensation. I remember being, I guess in a way, paranoid. It was like a half combination of paranoia and like having a psychotic breakdown, because a lot of information was being opened up within my mind, and I was trying to figure out where this was coming from, and I thought that I was going crazy, and I was afraid to share a lot of this information with just someone who at the time, let's just say common. Whatever. Somebody who just didn't understand what I was going through. So I couldn't have this conversation with quite a lot of people. In fact, I couldn't have the conversation at all. So that's when I went on the internet and started doing some research to see if there's anybody else like me out there that was experiencing what I was experiencing. And come to find out, it was. At the time, I was also living with, I had two roommates at the time. So they didn't know what I was experiencing, and I was keeping a lot of this under wraps because, again, I was afraid that I was going batshit crazy. And if I were to share any of this information and knowledge with them, I would think that they thought that I was like, truth be told, I would have thought that they thought I was possessed or some shit. So I just kept it to myself for the most part. So again, I'm on the internet and I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube. I'm reading a lot of I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of common and similar traits that, these other people who are experiencing awakenings that they're having, that I'm actually having too, and I'm just having it more at a higher, what's the word? A higher sensation of it. They were just like, yeah, I'm getting a mild this, a mild that. I'm like, I'm not getting anything mild right now. Like, in fact, I'm experiencing a lot of like, what is this? You know what I mean? It was like a flower that was opening up in my brain. Oh, Ooh. In fact, it was. Ooh, okay. Anyway, sorry, little breakthrough moment. Yeah, so there was like this flower that was basically, opening up within my brain. And I started understanding knowledge to the point where I was able to read the Bible in full at its entirety. I remember reading the Bible prior to awakening and it just didn't really make sense to me. When now the parables are, I know exactly what, it's not that I know exactly what they mean, but I definitely understand what each parable and the message is and how it was conveyed and how God created each verse. Aside from that, I'm going to share with you some of the external and then some of the internal experiences. So let's go into external. So, of course, like I said, the first thing that I kept seeing were the signs and synchronicities as far as angel numbers. I mean, I would see 000 all the way up until 7878 to 144 to 2020 to 999. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I remember being batshit crazy because I was like, why am I seeing so many of these? So that was the very first glimpse into my awakening, was the signs and synchronicities, and they were coming in rapidly on a consistent basis. Okay. On top of that, within my external reality, certain conversations would be had and it would scare me because it was something that I was maybe thinking at the time, and to the point where it would actually show up in my reality in a conversation that was being presented in front of me. And I got to a point I was like, wait, is somebody, I literally got to the point where I thought somebody was genuinely watching me. And I know that this is a common theme in other people's awakenings, is they feel that they're being watched. In fact, I genuinely thought that I was being watched under, what do you call it? Bitch, I don't even know what they even call it right now. 51, no, that's not a 5150, but like, I just felt like I was being stalked on a day-to-day basis because the thoughts that I were having in my internal head, would literally present itself again in physical form. But like, I didn't share this information with anybody. It was just that phrase, thoughts turns into reality. And I was just like, whoa, this is insane. Let's fast forward. So that was March. Let's fast forward to between the months of April, May, and June leading up to my birthday. I was introduced to the twin flame journey, and I started to experience what I would think is, a twin flame. I'm not going to get into the whole twin flame thing. One, I don't feel like having that conversation because I am not knowledgeable on it. What I can share was I was, in fact, on the twin flame journey because it led me into union with my masculine and feminine self. And so 2023, also, I was in a space where I had just came out. Did I just come out? Wait, bitch, did I come out then? No. Yes. Hold on. I got to figure out when I came out. Yes. Fast forward. I did come out, but I didn't come out until the end of the year. Okay. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's go back to April, May, June. April, May, June, I'm in the space of the twin flame journey, and I am experiencing that. One, I'm the divine feminine, which I truly, definitely identify with. I am the divine feminine, and that there's some divine masculine out there for me, and he's going to swoop me up off my feet, and we're going to live happily ever after. Bitch, I'm still single. So let's keep it a buck and a man. But that whole twin flame journey, like I said, gained me so much clarity on balance and balancing both my masculine and feminine energies. So that's why I can consider myself in union. I'm actually at a point where this is an agreement that I have with God, but I'm okay with sharing it with you. I told God that I'm not going to focus on relationships because that is something, because I love that much, I would get myself into situations that I should not have been getting myself into because I wasn't leading with my heart. I was kind of just leading with trauma to be honest with you. Yeah, good job, Debonair. Own that shit. I was leading with traumatic experiences, and I wasn't healed at the time when it came to, love and identifying, my soulmate and relationships and such. So they never really lasted, but that's not what the whole conversation is about. We'll talk about that on another time, but I'm just giving you, a little bit of the context of what I experienced. So again, like I was experiencing my twin flame journey, and then June hits, right? Whew, girl. So obviously, like I said, okay, awakening, twin flame journey, synchronicities. My life is being shaken. My internal and my external are being shaken. My internal, I'm starting to deal with traumatic experiences, and I'm operating and working with my shadow. Like I was introduced to shadow work and doing these kind of things, and really, really, really going in and trying to find the root of like all my issues and such, right? So that's the internal work. Like I said, my external, like I said, there was the, synchronicities and just not feeling seen like I used to, like the friends that I was having. It's not that I just started to pull away, and it wasn't anything that they did wrong. It's just, I just wasn't resonating with them anymore. But it also led me into not resonating with my job. Okay. So here's where it gets crazy. I had been working at the bar for 11 years. Now I've never shared the story on how I quit, but here it is. So grab your popcorn. I was, like I said, going through my awakening, and each and every day was a different experience. I'm learning more and more about myself. I'm also in this space where I'm getting a lot of sunlight. I've been led to, and this is a knowing in my head, to just go out and go get sunlight, right? So right before work, I would sit outside. I would wake up at like 10 a.m. and I would go sit outside at this local park that's nearby, and I'd be in that bitch until I'd say 10:30 till about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, just sitting in the sun. That was new. I've never sat in that much sun in my life, and I did that for months, weeks, months and weeks and days on end. And that was like the highlight of my day. I would go work out in the morning, and as soon as I go work out, I go I bought a beach blanket off of Amazon because I was sitting out there so goddamn much. This is so interesting. I can't believe I'm sharing this out loud right now, but I would sit outside with my beach blanket, and I would just be out there all day, every day. And my roommate be like, well, where were you? And I was like, girl, I'm just outside getting some sun. I'm trying to keep everything disclosed and like under wraps, because I know that I'm in this spiritual transition of my life. But because I'm still not grasping what I'm doing, I'm just being led to do it. You know what I mean? You know that? I'm sure you resonate with what I'm talking about here. I'm just being led to just be outside in the sun, and I'm not disobeying it. I actually enjoyed being out there. I felt like I was getting a lot of sensation and clarity and understanding, and I would sit out there and read books. Anyway, when it was time to work, like I said, I bartended, and my shift didn't start until like maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening. I'd get ready for work, and on my way to work, I told you in the last episode, I'd sit and listen to frequency music, and I did just that. I would sit and listen to frequency music. I would meditate 30 minutes. I did the meditation outside, but I do another meditation in my room right before work because I wanted to calm my brain, because where I worked was a high volume location, and it was just, you have to be so ready. You know what I mean? Like literally ready mentally to work at this bar because it's that crazy. Anyway, so I do all that, and I'm on my way to work, and I would notice that I just wasn't. How do I articulate this, Debonair? Give me a second, because I really want to explain this thoroughly. I just felt like I didn't belong there anymore. And I was asking myself, like I was still going back and forth, asking myself, do I belong here? Why am I not feeling like I want to be here anymore? Like my drive for the job was just low. I had this like don't give a fuck energy. I even got to the point where I was just like, you know what? I'll get fired. It's okay if I get fired because I'll just probably apply for unemployment or something. But mind you, I had been working there for 11 years. I moved from Minnesota to Los Angeles. I was making very, very good money working as a bartender. And I was only working 3 to 4 nights a week. So it wasn't like I was working each and every day. No, bitch, I was working like Wednesday, occasional Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights. That's it. And I had the rest of the week to myself. But yet I wasn't happy. I started to become just miserable to the point where like I remember just pulling up into the parking structure and I was just like, oh my God, I have to do another like 5 hours here and I have to deal with all these different type of energies and people and such. Mind you, keep in mind, I'm just now having an awakening. I'm with myself. I'm in the sun. I'm you know what I mean? I'm grounding. I'm doing all the things that I'm in solitude. So you have this person who's putting in work in himself and then showing up to an environment that is not, it's the polar opposite. Of course, there was some friction, right? The heightened sensitivity that I shared with you in the beginning of this episode, that was a heightened sensitivity in so many different areas of my life, to the point where like there was so much joy in my life that I was just like anything that was just like of good, I would be very sensitive and, you know, I would cry at the drop of a dime. And to the point where when I would hear negative stuff, like it would just make my stomach hurt and I didn't want to be around it. Like it was that bad. Like I could feel it. Right. So that feeling of, I guess I was experiencing myself feeling vibrations and frequencies. And I was opening myself up to feeling these type of frequencies. Because when I was with myself, I noticed that the feeling that I had, the sensations were very high. And you know what I mean? And of course, when I found like a root of something, like I would cry, but I would forgive myself because I was just like, oh my God, so this is the reason why I did XYZ, because I was experiencing this at age 3, you know, like all these things were just kind of like the dots were connecting in my own personal reality. But then when I walked into, like I said, I pulled into the parking structure for my job, I had this like sensation of just low vibration, like a low frequency. And I would feel it in my stomach. And it got really, really bad. Even when I got to work, like I felt like people's faces started to get distorted. Did I say that right? Distorted. I'm sorry. Distorted. And it was bad. I was like, yo, I don't feel safe here anymore. And so that's why I started to experience the feeling that I had going into work each and every day. Mind you, so this is June, okay? So that feeling lasted about 30 days. July 1st, which happens to be, if I'm not mistaken, it was a Saturday. Now I'm curious. I'm going to look it up. Hold on. Bitch, it was unforgettable. I was right. I just asked ChatGPT just now. I said, what day was July 1st, 2023? What day did it fall on? And Chad said it was a Saturday. Bitch, I still remember it. It was a Saturday. I was scheduled to work at 8 o'clock. And that day I went and I experienced a meditation with a former friend of mine during the day. And I'm driving back home and I'm just getting this sensation, just like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't feel comfortable going into work. Like I just left it at that, right? Because I was just like, oh, here I go. I got to go do another, couple hours at 8 o'clock at this place I don't want to be. I had never, ever experienced this before. Never experienced this before. And I was just like, you know what? I know the money's good, but I'm like, sometimes it's just not about the money. Like my mental health is being affected right now. I don't think that I deserve to be here. So I'm thinking this, mind you, leaving this meditation in Hollywood. And I think the time was around like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, I can still remember it like it was yesterday. So I pull up to the house, my apartment, and I'm just sitting in my car and I'm like, oh, let me mentally prepare myself for this, right? Okay. Because I will do the same thing. I would do my meditation, listen to the frequency music, and like get myself mentally prepared. I'd say a couple of affirmations because at this time I was really heavily into affirmations. I think I was listening to or writing my own at the time. Was I writing my own at the time? I was writing my own at the time, but I was also taking some from other people. And anyway, I just remember my stomach being in knots, just knotted up the entire day. And I was like, yo, I'm getting sick. I don't know what this is. I'm like, maybe I should call out. I'm like, no, I don't want to call out. Let's just do it. Let's make this work. You know, you've experienced this before. Like I said, I was scheduled to be there at 8 o'clock. It was 7:30. I'm getting ready to walk out my apartment door. And I heard the voice of God said, do not worry about this job. You are taken care of. Your time is up now. And not only did I heard that, I felt it. And how I felt it was, I got a big punch in my stomach and I fell to the ground. And my roommate ran and she was like, yo, are you okay? And I just started crying. And I was like, I can't do this. And she was like, what can't you do? I said, I can't go to my job. So she thought like something was like internally happening, and something was internally happening. I just had this urge. But when I tell you, and please hear me when I say this, that urge and that punch that was in my stomach was so heavy, I had no other choice but to sit and trust it. And that's exactly what I did. And that was the day that I quit. So I sat and I called my job and I let my former manager know. I said, hey, I'm really sorry, but I'm experiencing something right now and it's allowing me not to return back. So effective right now, this is my last day. And I was questioning, am I making the right choice? Am I making the right choice? And just something just kept saying, you are going to be okay. And I kept hearing it like it was, you're going to be okay. 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 I heard it on one side, right? Then I heard myself, my human self, like, oh my God, am I making the wrong decision? Like, why am I quitting my job after 11 years? I'm never going to make rent. I mean, I had all these negative things happening, but I kept hearing on the other side, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I had never heard that you're going to be okay side that clearly. So I had no other choice but to trust that okay side, right? So I'm on the phone, like I said, with my boss, and I told her, I said, hey girl, I'm done. I'm not coming back. And she's just like, I remember her giving me this ultimatum. She said, hey, maybe you're just having like a personal experience. Why don't you take the rest of the weekend off? And then we'll talk about it, on Monday. And I remember thinking in my head, okay, this is something that I would usually do my human self, me having control, right? The control freak in me would be like, yeah, I would just need a weekend because maybe I'm just tripping, blah, blah, blah. I know I'm going through all these awakenings and such, but like this is just new. And I kept hearing, you remember I told you the person that said, you're going to be okay in my head? That person also said, this is a setup. You don't do it. Like I said, you're going to be okay. And I remember telling my boss, I was like, I'm really sorry. Because I told her, yeah, I needed that weekend to think about it. And then in the midst of it, I said, I'm sorry. I don't need a weekend. I'm sure of my decision. I quit. I'm really sorry, but thank you for this experience, And so I quit July 1st, 2023, cold turkey. And mind you, I have not shown up to that location ever since. So, yeah, I had quit my job of 11 years, my major source of income, as I was climbing to become this mainstream actor who would only get, a job every like so often, but just like anybody else who's out here in Los Angeles, you are living the struggling actor and you are still finding a way to make a means and a living for yourself. So you're either working Uber or doing some type of a restaurant job or working as a bartender. And this was my life, my reality of 11 years. I was the struggling actor who was making a living in the meantime of me coming up in stardom as a bartender. And I decided to quit my job cold turkey with no backup plan and having no idea what the fuck I'm going to be doing and how rent is going to be paid, because that was my main priority, because I was freaking out, but I was sure of myself at the same damn time. But I also realized in that experience that that was the very first time that I trusted myself, because I allowed my intuition, which I, will also say the voice of God, to enter. And instead of me choosing my human self, I chose my spiritual self at that time. That was the beginning of a unforgettable summer. So since I decided to trust my intuition, I was being called. I basically was, I had activated something within my internal makeup, to the point where I would constantly get a message to do this and do that. And I was being led by my intuition in places that I never thought would be possible. And in the midst of that, I can tell you that money was just coming in, and that me being so frequently worried about how I was going to get this paid and how I was going to get that paid, because like I said, I still had bills. Not only did I had bills, I think my struggle was at the time, I'm thinking about myself, but I'm also thinking about, I have roommates and we signed a lease together, and I've got a car payment and all these other things. And I don't want to just, end up down bad. And you know what I mean? Like I I just did the unthinkable. I did one of the biggest things that I would have never in my own personal reality have done, because I was so much of a control freak. I had, all my T's crossed and my I's dotted. This was never an experience that I would have done. I would have never just quit cold turkey like that. I'm the type of guy who would put a 2 weeks in. I would already have a job in line for the next job. You get what I'm saying? And I'm sure most people who resonate would do the same exact thing too. But no, I just said, fuck it. No. I heard that voice. That voice was clear as day and said, you're going to be okay. Take my hand or take this other hand. And I took that hand. That summer led me on a trip. I ended up going to Oakland. I was led again. I was invited, but the way that everything was orchestrated within that year, which was very, very prominent and, just like I said, unparalleled. I was led to a trip to Oakland. So I ended up taking a bus out there, and I stayed out there for about maybe 4 or 5 days. And at the time, I was liberated. I was so excited. I had just quit my job just like a month prior. And I was excited to hang out with my friend, and my friend who lived up there, or who lives up there. He was a Reiki healer. He is a Reiki healer, a level 3 Reiki healer. And I didn't get any Reiki done. Or did I? Did I, bitch? Did I? No, I didn't get any Reiki done then. I ended up just hanging out with him. And I remember him offering Reiki at the time. But no, I didn't do Reiki. But I ended up having an experience that was probably even better than Reiki. He helped unfold my feminine energy that I had been suppressing for quite some time. And when I say suppressing, I'm what you see is what you get. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to put on this, this mask, persona or anything like that. No, I'm talking the way that I talk. This is the way that my voice was given to me. I was very free, but I always had a very soft side to me. And, growing up, closeted gay, I dabbled. I was very feminine. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. Like, you would tell, especially when I was a little kid, oh yeah, he gay type shit. Right. But what I'm saying is, like, I guess I was just in a space where, like, I was masking. I was like, yeah, I'm gay, but like, I can still be a man. I think that's what my intentions were at the time with an unhealed mindset. So, how this unfolded was my friend, who, like I said, is a Reiki healer. We ended up having an experience where we kind of, I guess you could say, we played dress up. And it was like liberating. And I was just like, yo, this is probably, this is something that I would never do in my reality, like, ever. And he was just like, just be free, bro. Like, have fun. Like, just put on, he had this trunk. I kid you not, he had like this big chest full of costumes. And he actually is very much into cosplay. And he loves dressing up and doing different types of androgynous characters and such. So, like I said, he had this big trust. He had this big chest full of costumes. And I remember just putting something on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to grab that. I remember picking like this leather jacket. I was like, I would never, ever wear that. Like, that's something that I would never wear. I would never set foot putting that on. And you know what I mean? Because too feminine and all this other stuff. Mind you, I'm gay. Gay as fuck, right? Again, I still hadn't come out yet. All right, so hear me out. We're reefing, we're doing 420, aka, smoking that reefer or whatever, and we're just vibing, and we got the music playing, and we just start grabbing clothes, and we started putting different clothes on, and I just felt like an activation of my inner child, of just, I don't know, there was this sensation of freedom, like pure ultimate freedom. Like, I didn't give a fuck about what anybody would say and what I had on, because I was the purest and the most freest of it all. And I was like, yo, am I trans? And I was like, no, I'm not trans, but like, something about this feels good. But I remember going through this, like, this period in my life too, where I genuinely thought that I was trans. I talk about this in another episode on the podcast. I believe in season 1. I'm not sure exactly what episode, but yeah, there was a period in my life where I thought that I was trans, because I remember putting on these garments and I was just like, yo, this is, whoa. It was like, okay, picture this. Remember when Dennis Rodman would wear clothes, like women's clothing? That's how I felt. And I remember saying that, I was like, yo, I feel like Dennis Rodman right now. Like, I'm very much so a man, but I feel very comfortable in this, like, it was like this little skirt dress number type shit that he had in that chest. And I was just looking at myself, and I was staring at myself, and I was just like, yo, what is happening? And it turns out, now looking at it and reflecting, I was being activated in my true divine feminine energy. I was allowing my feminine energy to be seen for the very first time with no judgment. And I felt safe in that moment, because my friend was just, I believe he was crying and I was crying, and we were just looking at each other like, this was supposed to happen. Like, this was divinely orchestrated for me to have this experience, right? And I think this was also a sense of security that led me into coming out. Mind you, I had went to Oakland, and I had this experience in August. And toward the end, I'm sorry, it was the end of July. In the beginning of August, I officially came out, not only to myself, but to the world. And I was in this pure state of just liberation. And I was entering, like I said, I was being more free and tapping more into my divine feminine energy. And I remember, I don't know, I don't have a name for it, but what I can share was the divine energy had a voice. And I remember it saying, them saying, we've been waiting for you. And it was so just downright liberating. So if you notice the timeline in the beginning of the year 2023, I was on this twin flame journey, now figuring out that I am a divine feminine, which I felt very comfortable in identifying because a lot of the things that a divine feminine upholds and possesses were things that I was trying to suppress. And I wasn't in a space of acceptance of it. Like I knew I had a high intuition, but I felt like that was too much for a man, quote unquote, a man to have. But I'm also living a life under societal norms and conditions and terms and agreements of generational trauma. And I'm not living for myself. So me introducing or me knowing about, men can be divine feminines and what they uphold, and having this clear understanding that I definitely identify with this, but I don't want to believe it. And, it leading up to me quitting my job to get me to Oakland, to get me into a experience where I'm opening up a treasure chest, not a treasure chest, but like a chest full of beautiful garments, custom garments, and allowing myself to put these garments on to feel free, safe, and seen and comfortable, and aligning my true, my outer. I what am I trying to say? I'm not letting my outer shell, which is this masculine demeanor, interfere with me putting on this clothing, because I still felt beautiful and I still felt free and I loved myself and I was liberated at the same damn time. This was the experience. This is why I say 2023 would be unforgettable. Then on top of that, I had just bought a ticket to the Renaissance, and I'm walking into the Renaissance with Beyonce, her world tour at the SoFi. I'm walking in there and I felt comfortable enough to step out, and what I made was a custom divine feminine. I called it the Phoenix Rising of the divine feminine. And if you're on my Instagram and you follow me on my Instagram, I still have it pinned. Um, that was the outfit that I had curated and customized, that I saw this person, like I said, that person that said, not quit your job, but the person that said that we've been waiting for you when I was putting on that women's clothing, that divine feminine, that is a visual representation. If you follow me on Instagram, if you want to look at it, it's Devonair Mathis. That's my name on Instagram. But look at it. That photo is a visual representation of what I envision of that voice. And I was just listening. I was, she had, I'm going to say she had green hair. She was an alien motherfucking superstar, which is why I still love that damn song, because it just represents everything in what I was experiencing in the year of 2023. I believe that was also the Renaissance era, the beginning of the Renaissance era. So like, bitch, I was right on track. What I can definitely share with you is my life has been led, it has been breadcrumbed, and I will share a lot of these experiences as I continue this podcast, because some of the things that I share, you can't make it up. And that's a common phrase that I always say in my reality, because you just can't make this shit up anymore. And it gets to the point where I laugh. So this is toward the end of August. So between August and December, leading up to 2024, which I would say the Mercury retrograde in March that we had, a lot of my life had been just kind of very in a state of high, in a state of bliss, and a lot of gratitude, where I was just like, wow, this is really happening. Me introducing myself to my divine feminine side, because I was always operating in my masculine, but I finally let my feminine play. And so I got accustomed and I got used to who my feminine is, and this feminine energy that I uphold, that I have right now in this present moment. Now we're locked in. Like we baby, we are in union. Okay? We go together real bad. Real bad. My masculine and my feminine, we go together real bad. Like I can do bad all by myself. Point blank, period. But the series of events of 2023 were just nothing but gratitude and bliss. And it was, again, it was opening me up to new experiences. And I think it would not have happened had I not trusted that initial gut feeling that I got prior to walking into work July 1st, and again, that's how a series of all of these experiences had happened. 2024, however, was a dark time, and I will definitely share that in another episode. But I want to just focus on the high because, bitch, 2024 was so fucking dark. I'm sorry, because please stay tuned, TBD. But what I'm sharing is I'm going to give you an intro of 2024. I was down bad. I was down real bad, and I didn't know what was happening. But like I said, to make a long story short, and I'll go into details in another episode, 2024 was allowing me to truly uncover my shadow, and identify things that I had been hiding. And one of the biggest things that I had been hiding was the fact that I was living with HIV, and I wasn't fully accepting of it to myself. And I had to really sit with that. And I sat with that for months. And there was a lot of internal battle. Will people judge me? Will I be this? Will people look at me the same? There was a lot of back and forth. Again, we'll talk about this in another episode. But to bring it back to 2023 was just like it was like a duality. 2023 was the high, 2024 was the low, and I had to sit with both of them. And now here I am in the middle at 2025, living to talk about both experiences and how it made me who I am in this present moment. Clock that. Ooh, hold on. Sorry, not sorry. I just had to give myself praise because I'm really proud of myself for doing that internal work to get to this place where I can talk freely about my experience on this earth. But talking a little bit more about 2024, what I can also share is it was not a space of the joy and the high sensations that I had in 2023 when I again experienced my awakening, my first fully awakening. Again, I was still seeing angel numbers and these certain things that were just giving me clues that like you're still on track, but I wasn't prepared for this part of the journey, and it got really rough. It got really, really rough. And so, like I said, I was starting to question, like, I thought that a spiritual awakening is something that is uplifting. I genuinely walked into this experience thinking that it's full of just highs. No, there's a duality, there are highs and there are lows. And here I am navigating between both of them. But I had experienced a full year. Like, they gave me all the highs in the first year of like my awakening. And I was just like riding this wave. And I was like, oh, nothing could happen to me, this, that, and the third, and I'm going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I genuinely thought that life was glitter and rainbows and Skittles all day, every day. And to the point where I was walking in mud and I didn't know where my next meal was going to be. Dead ass. I genuinely didn't know where my next meal was. And again, like I said, we'll talk about 2024 in another episode. But what I'm going to give you today in this one is I was afraid. And I remember asking myself, did I do something wrong to be put in this position now, to experience this part of the awakening? Because I'm watching my peers rise and people that I was following, and none of them really talked about this part. They never talked about the lows that you had to experience, like the shadows and shit. You know what I mean? But this is where I was I don't want to say hallucinating, but I was questioning a lot of this experience. But then I kept saying, well, I mean, I've gotten this far. You know what I mean? Keep in mind, I had been doing this work again since 2020, but like my first full aware, I don't know how to say that correctly. My first awakening, being aware of it, was in 2023. And so, like I said, it was a high. It was great. It was amazing. It was beautiful experiences. It was me coming out to the world. Like, I was having breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. And then, like I said, 2024, I was having breakthrough after breakthrough, but it was things that I did not want to break through. Like, I was having a hard time breaking through those fucking traumatic experiences, living with HIV being one. After a full high of 2023 and a full low of 2024, here's what I realized. And remember, please put a pin in 2024, because I will talk about this at another date. Heaven on earth isn't a destination. It's a decision. It's a practice. Because it was meant for me and curated and designed for me to experience a full year of high and a full year of solitude and low, to integrate and be in a position now where I can finally understand why things have happened to me, because they happened for me. And I was designed spiritually for these series of events to take place, for me now to be placed on earth and experience earth for what it truly is, the highs and the lows. Hear me when I say this. We're not meant to stay in the high. We're meant to integrate in it. And for me, that meant unpacking the beliefs that I was raised with, the ones that shaped me by survival, fear, and the system that my mother had passed down to me. And on top of that, my own experiences, my own personal experiences that have led me into a series of low traumatic vibrations, and allowing myself to forgive myself and not let it be me, but let it be a part of me, and let it be a story that I am now able to share in this present moment. When I said heaven on earth isn't a destination, it's a decision. It is that integration of the high experiences through spiritual awakening and the low experiences of a spiritual awakening. As above, so below. As within, so without. Internal, external. Highs, lows. Everything is duality. And what my experience got me to is a state of being right smack in the center of it all, where I can identify and stay in a flow, an ebb and flow of balance between good days and bad days, highs and lows. This experience, heaven on earth, is giving you a choice. And that choice comes with a decision. And it's simple. Each and every day, are you going to let the experience tear you down, or are you going to rise above the experience and learn from it? When I finished the inner work in 2024, I began creating beliefs rooted in me, and I started to discover my joy, my truth, my alignment, and slowly my external world began to reflect that once again. It was as if, I was repeating 2023, but in a more realistic way. And that's the thing about this path. And there's no escaping the 3D. When I was in 2023, I was experiencing like just this high. Like there's that split that they always talking about, the 3D and the 5D. I thought that this is just what the 5D looks like, and it's just going to be like this on a constant daily basis. When in actuality, no, there's still high highs and there's still low lows. But the thing is, you are now in a state of being, like I said, in the center of it, where you're able to balance and identify is this happening to me, or why is this happening, this experience happening to me, and how I can learn from it, because each and every day there's going to be another obstacle that you have to overcome, because this entire journey is never ending. It's endless, and there's an abundant full there's a limitless amount of lessons and things that need to be learned. And truth be told, I genuinely thought that, once you hit this point, you're done. Nope. But it's about being in this state of full awareness of it all. And that's where the real heaven on earth lives. You, again, have that sense of control, but it's a sense of control through a surrendering state, because you're allowing the divine to curate these lessons for you, instead of knowing that, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? It's more so, okay, wow. So I'm experiencing this now in my reality. Why is this happening now? What can I learn from this? Because we already know that as a bad bitch as we are, we're going to overcome this. So why is this lesson being presented to itself in my reality now? It's now you're playing. There's this sense of allowance, and just allowing the universe to work through you, to and through you, instead of against you. And I'll say this because I think this is very pivotal. We're not here just to ascend. And that's something that I realize. We're here to feel. We're here to create. We're here to laugh. We're here to play. We're here to find joy in the things that, again, make us happy, fill us up. Which is why I believe with my whole chest, heaven on earth should be a playground. The deeper that I go, the more I see the joy is sacred. Presence is sacred. And every time I honor that, I come home to myself over and over and over and time again. And this is the experience that we should have when we do ascend, when we do awaken, and we do find ourselves back to our purest selves, our spiritual selves, having this human experience. Every day is like standing at a shoreline. You can let the waves knock you down, or you can learn to ride them. The tide will always come, but how you meet it is up to you. So now, in this present moment, we're still experiencing high highs, but we're also experiencing low lows. But being in the present moment is more rewarding and so fulfilling now, because I know that this is an experience. You know how you've heard somewhere online that this life is kind of like a video game? It is, because each and every day I wake up and I'm excited to see where this life is going to take me. Because now that you're in a state of pure surrender, you have absolutely no control anymore. So one day it will be a high and one day it'll be a low. But now that you know that this low isn't happening to you and that it's happening for you, it gives it a little bit more comfort, because it's just like, okay, well, I know that this is an experience that's designed for me. So I'm going to persevere like I normally do, and I'm going to get through this, and I'm not going to I'm not going to let it affect me. That's the ultimate power that this journey rewards you with. And to be in the present moment it's beyond rewarding. If I can articulate it in the way that I see it in my mind, heaven is a 5D consciousness, and earth is the three-dimensional playground that we are experiencing this journey. So that's why I say heaven on earth should be a playground. If this episode hit something in you, I want to invite you to keep going. This story started as a reflection inside the Conscious Dev, my newsletter, where I go even deeper in writing. The link is in my show notes if you're ready to read it. You can also explore more of what I've created, like my spiritual jewelry line, Vibrations, designed for the you that's evolving and aligning every day. And if you're feeling like you've been doing all the inner work but still can't figure out how to turn it into a life that feels clear, supported, and abundant, I created a course, Co-Create with the Universe, for exactly that. It's a step-by-step experience built from everything I had to learn on my own, rewiring beliefs, trusting myself again, and designing a life that actually feels like mine. If you're ready for that kind of shift, you'll know. I'll leave that link in the show notes. And of course, if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so you never miss a download. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment or a review. It helps more than you know. And if you ever want to connect, reach me at thehighDevPerspective@gmail.com. That's all the time that I have for today. Thank you so much for listening to my story. And until next time, keep playing because joy is in the practice. Continue to stay curious and inspired. And happy healing. This is the High Dev Perspective. I'll see you next time.